Hey everyone! In this week's video, we are going to be doing a resin pour, big surprise, but it is going to be a little bit different than our usual smoky gray or deep blue. We're doing a custom color. We're going to be matching this vase that our client brought in. So they have this, they keep it on their dining table, and it's actually going to sit on the resin. So this is going to be their table here, and if you can imagine, the vase will sit on the table like this, and then there'll be the same color of resin in all those voids there. So we're going to show you our process right now of how we actually go about creating a custom color to match like that, and then we'll do the mixing, the pour, and then we've got a few more exciting things to show you in this video too. Okay, so I went ahead, I've just poured some water in this cup. That's one thing I like to do before I actually go and mix my epoxy up, is just use water. You can actually create the color pretty close in the water. And here's the photo I took back in September for the client when I made it. So I kind of have an idea how I did this, but I don't 100% remember, so we're going to try and recreate that right now. So to create that color there, basically all I did is I started out with a little bit of blue dye, a little bit of green dye. That gave me close to the color, but it wasn't quite light enough, so that's when I started putting in some of this white dye here, and then a little bit of this green metallic powder, just because it does have some of the same tones that we're looking for in there. And then that got us a pretty close match. So we'll mix our buckets up one by one, doing the same thing, testing as we go, and we'll get it poured in there.
Just freeze it like that.
Yeah, and get the resin to cure that way. 2, 1, 4. Here's the pour from yesterday. So it's probably been about 24 hours now since we did the pour. We've got our thermometer here to check the temperature. So I will see what we're sitting at. So it's about 21.5 degrees approximately. That is perfect for a pour of this size. It's about 2.5 inches thick. It is, I think we ended up doing 70 liters, 69 or 70 liters. So if you saw it starting to go like over 30 degrees, then you'd want to turn more of your fans on. But 21 degrees is perfect. And even though the fans are off right now, we do have them all on during that whole 24-hour process. And then even up to probably 48 to 72 hours, we leave the fans on just to make sure all that heat gets dissipated. This one we're probably going to pop out of the mold next week, so you'll see that in next week's video for sure. But we're actually really pleased with the way that this color turned out. We haven't done a color like this before. Most of them are either that kind of deep royal blue or the smoky gray, so this is a nice thing just to mix it up a bit. And the decayed sections in the walnut that you can see here are going to look really, really good once we get this all sanded up. So Ben just put down the first coat of extra thin on this clear walnut dining table. This is actually part of a package, so we're doing the dining table right here, and then over to my right there is the bench. They both came from the same slab of wood. It was one big, like 13-foot slab that we cut in half. We used one half to make this bench here, then the other half was for the dining table. And you can see that we've done kind of a nice transparent black resin on the inside there. So we did that with just a couple drops of black dye. A lot of people ask how we do the transparent colors, if it's like a different type of dye or pigment. It's not, it's the same type of pigment, it's just you put less in. So usually what we do, we start with a few drops and then we'll take like a cup, a smaller clear cup, and scoop some resin out to test the color. On this one though, we've paired it with, like I said, the Clara Walnut This is going to be getting shipped to Kelowna, BC, so we're not going to be delivering this one, but we'll probably get some photos when the client has it in her home. And the first coat right now I'll show you is the extra thin, just if you want to see the can. So it's the 1101 from Osmo. We always do this for the first or second coat just because it gives better water protection, as it's way thinner than the Pollux, so it sinks in way more. You can find this probably in the description. We'll put a link on our website, and we have a bunch of other videos too that explain our finishing process. Here is the finished dining table for JB Smooth. So you just saw in that time lapse Ben doing the first coat on this. Now it has got all of its coats on, so we've got the extra thin, then 2 coats of Pollux, and you can see we've got a really, really good sheen out of it. That's just because Ben spent so long buffing it and making it perfect. We're not 100% sure yet if the delivery is going to happen before New Year's. We're just waiting to hear back from JB. It might, so if it does, you'll see the video, and then if not, you'll see that in the new year. But probably next week, you're gonna see us do the legs and just do a sort of a little photo shoot for his dining table and his coffee table. And then over the last weekend that just passed, we actually had our build your own coffee table workshop. So whenever we post videos of that on Instagram or Facebook, it goes crazy. We actually have one video on Facebook right now that I think just hit 5 million views. So people really seem to like it, and I wanted to share that with you guys on YouTube. So in this class, the students essentially, they come in, they pick all of their own materials. So they pick the lumber. We show them how to pick straight and clear lumber for a table like this. They S4S it all to size, they glue up the top, and then in the second day they actually get to use a lot of table saw jigs to cut some custom joinery. So the first jig that the students use is to cut the legs. So we do this on our saw stop table saw, and we use a great big dado blade in it to cut that 60 mil thick joinery that we want. It's all in one cut, and that's because we're using the big 7.5 horsepower saw stop, so it doesn't bog down. If you did have a weaker saw, you might want to do this in 2 cuts, but essentially we make 1 cut in one direction, we rotate the leg 90 degrees, we make a cut in the other direction, and that gives us the size of joinery we want for that table leg. The next thing that the students do is we show them how to cut a taper on their legs using a jig on the table saw. So this is much more safe than cutting it freehand by just putting an angle on your fence. Instead, we set up this angled jig on our panel saw, so it's got that sliding table. The piece of wood is completely held down by clamps, so the students don't even have to touch the wood. And then that wedge piece just kind of slides right off out of the way, and they have a nice tapered leg. Then the students use a jig back on the saw stop that is very similar to the one they did for the legs, but this is going to cut the skirt. So what we're doing here is we're cutting a half lap, so we cut a 30 millimeter tall notch in one side of the short skirt piece and a 30 millimeter tall notch in the other side of the skirt piece. And then you'll see that once we have the pieces cut and sanded, they'll fit together perfectly. Then here we are using our Supermax sander to take these skirt pieces down to size. So the size of the groove that you just saw us cutting these pieces on the table saw is about 19.1 millimeters, and the skirt components are at 19.5 before they go in the sander. So then we just slowly sand them down until that fits perfectly. Now that the skirt pieces are all sanded through our Supermax, we can go ahead and fit them together, and as you can see, since we cut that groove 30 millimeters high, 19.1 millimeters wide. Once everything fits together, it's all nice and flush on top. Then we head over to the drill press, and we're actually just drilling a hole right through the center of that joint so that when we assemble the leg onto this, we can put 1 screw right through it, and it's going to hold everything together nice and tight. And then by the end of that 2-day course, here's the table that our students have completed. So they've learned how to basically take raw material, rough lumber from the racks, straighten and true it, glue it together, create a top, cut the joinery on the table saw. We even talk about creating the jigs, and they walk away with their own handmade solid wood coffee table. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that content from our class, and let us know if you like seeing more of the actual woodworking with the machinery, like the table saws and cutting joinery. It's a little bit different than we've showed on our channel before, so just leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought. Next week though, our wood from Gobi Walnut is going to be showing up for our Marriott project, and we're going to get started on that right away as soon as it shows up, because we have to have those delivered for first or second week of January, and it's already second week of December, so very short timeline on this one, but we're going to get it done. We're going to pull it off. Again, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next week.